Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining this mini training session on creating staff directories on your TFA.org microsite. This week we are doing a series of mini training sessions, so they're going to be really focused on doing the things on your microsite, things that we have heard a lot of you asking about, asking really good questions about how to get started and what to do. So hopefully this will be really helpful and really actionable for when you are ready to add this section to your microsite. So just a brief introduction. I feel like I recognize a lot of the names on the participant list, which is really great. But for those who I haven't met, I'm Laura, and I work on the TFA.org web team. I'm based out of a home office in Seattle, and my role is to help support regions with training and content strategy on their TFA.org microsite. So I'm excited to be with you all today. And I wanted to just cover briefly what we're going to talk about in our short little session today. We will start by talking about why add a staff directory to your microsite? How is that a helpful thing? And I'm actually curious to hear what you all think about that. Then we will spotlight a few staff directories that other regions have created. I want to say there are probably about a dozen or more regions that have created staff directories, and so there are a lot of great examples to look at and kind of see. We'll talk about some do's and don'ts for headshots. Headshots are sort of a primary component of your staff directory, and there are a few tips to make those headshots really the best. And then we'll talk about how to build it. So we'll do a little brief demonstration and answer any questions you all have. And with that, I want to start by talking about why adding a staff directory can be a smart enhancement on your microsite. And before I share some thoughts about that, I'd love to hear in the chat from you all why you're interested in adding a staff directory to your microsite. So we'll take about a minute, and you can use the chat. For those who are new to this Zoom tool, I believe there is a toolbar at the bottom, and you might have to click on the More button to view the chat. And then you can just type your response right in there. So love to hear from you all why you're interested in adding a staff directory to your microsite. All right, Megan, first one to share. So you're interested to have community members, alumni, et cetera, know who is on staff and how to contact them, especially those moving to the region. Great answer. Sarah says, for networking in our region, external partners can easily locate the best way to contact us. Jamie, thinking about your days in the Nashville region, help matriculants see a face and small bio when we called them a lot during confirmation windows. Molly, for current and new audiences, to connect with those on staff and see who is best to contact for their needs. Make the site personable. Great, I like that one from Bianca. Stephanie, make it easier for outside people to connect with us and who are the best people to reach out for specific information. Good. These are all fantastic responses, and this makes me really excited that you're going to have the tools to do this on your own at the end of this training. Yeah. So not surprisingly, I have some themes here that definitely align with what you're all sharing. This idea of connection and personalization. So actually giving people a view into who is on your staff and how to connect with them directly, and to personalize, to kind of put a face to the people who work in your region. And I think some other themes that you all are getting at too in your responses are this idea of trust and transparency. And we know that one of the defining characteristics of our prospects is, being a little wary of brands that can feel like corporate or monolithic. And I don't think that Teach for America's brand feels that way at all. But I think that having a staff directory on your microsite can go a long way toward building trust, where prospects can connect with you, and in some cases you know, kind of start to see themselves in the people that are on your team. Like, oh, those are people just like me. Like, this is totally my league. This is like an organization I want to be a part of. So it's a small way to add all of these elements to your microsite and make it a part of the experience when people visit. So let's take a minute and look at a couple examples of staff directories that other regions have created. As I mentioned, there are probably about a dozen now. I'm going to share 3 that I think are really strong, and we'll talk about what makes these great staff directories. And I'm going to start with the Bay Area, and Bianca is on this call, so we can give props to her for this awesome staff directory. Staff directories we put on the About Us page just because it's sort of the best, a very natural, good fit for building out this section and telling people more about your region. So the Bay Area has a fantastic staff directory. They included a lot of information about their staff, so name and title, as well as core year and core region, and which sub-region they work in. So the Bay Area has a couple of sub-regions because they're pretty spread out, so that's helpful to see as well. And so they took some great photos. If you'll notice, everybody is in the same location. The photo backgrounds are consistent, so it looks like, Bianca, maybe you can share. Do you recall, were these photos taken in your office?
Hi, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so these photos were taken in our office. We actually had a photographer come in during our all-core time before school started, and we had photos taken of staff, our teachers, and a photographer was there for about 4 hours to help us out with this. But we have a ton of empty white walls too, where like it was super easy to take photos in case people were unavailable that day to come in. So you'll see some photos are a little bit different. That's probably because I took them versus the photographer who came in.
Great. So you had someone come in and take photos. And that is definitely an option for folks. And yeah, you'll see some of the photos are missing, and that's okay. When we create staff directories, you know, it's ideal to have everybody's headshot, but we know that's not always an option. So there's this kind of little silhouette placeholder here for folks who don't have a picture yet. And I want to show just a little bit about how this works. So these people profiles are built on our national site, and we'll take a look at exactly how that works in a couple minutes. So what happens right now is when you click through to read more, you can either click on the person's picture or the read more button here. This will take you to the national site, to that person's profile page. So here's Jordan's profile page. And so there's basic info, job title, core year, core region, his name. You can also add email contact info. You can add a bio about that person. And so there's more you can do here. But this is sort of what the experience is like for folks who click through. We're looking at making this open in a new tab in the future because we recognize like this can be a little bit of a confusing experience for folks who are on a region page and then they click through and go to the national site and they're kind of wondering, wait, where did I go? How do I get back? So that's something we want to improve in the future, but for now, that's how it works. So this is the Bay. Thank you for sharing, Bianca. And I wanted to also share an example from the Milwaukee region. And so I'm going to click on the About Us page and we'll take a look at their directory. Pretty similar in terms of layout. They usually, if there's no additional information, like no bio or no email address for the person, we don't have the See More button just because there really isn't a lot more to see. So for the Milwaukee region, that's how we formatted this, but it's easily something you could turn on or off. And I love this staff directory because they coordinated and everybody wore a Milwaukee t-shirt to work that day. That's our photo was taken. So I love how consistent all the photos are. And it also looks like they did a photo shoot and had pictures taken in the same place. Everybody's standing against kind of like a similar little mural. So this is great. It's so personable and just shows like kind of the Milwaukee region's pride in where they work. And so I love this example. The last one I'll show is from Rio Grande Valley. They're a smaller team. And I wanted to share this example because similar to the Bay Area, the Rio Grande Valley was, thinking about doing a photo shoot for their staff. And I believe, and if anyone from RGV is on this call, please speak up. But I believe they have someone on staff take these photos. They borrowed a nice camera and just had everybody stand in the same place, dress up nice, and take the photos taken by a staff member. So this is also an option. I know like hiring a photographer can sometimes be costly. So if that's not in the budget for your region, you can definitely have somebody take those photos. And there are a couple tips you can follow that we'll talk about to make those photos look great. So that's what staff directories look like. We try to make these a little consistent across regions, but you do have options for doing, things a little different if you want to enable that see more button, or you can orient the photos in a vertical layout rather than horizontal. That's another option too. So let's go back and just a little bit briefly about best practices for headshots. So little two do's and don'ts as you're thinking about collecting photos or doing a photo shoot. As far as the do's, I think you're probably seeing this in all the examples we looked at. Shooting your photos in bright natural light is going to be the most flattering and most going to give you the best quality photo. So not necessarily standing in the sunlight where you're squinting, but facing a window in the office against a plain wall can be a really good choice. There's a lot of diffuse light that comes in and works well for most cameras. Using a simple background, so the examples we saw were, plain backgrounds or muted backgrounds that don't distract from the person. Keeping the person in focus, of course, so making sure their face is the thing that's being focused on with the camera. And then cropping your photos to 320 by 320. This one is a practice we follow on the team for a couple of reasons. It ensures that the photo is not distorted within that little circle once you create the person profile. And it also means the page will load quickly, both on a desktop browser and on mobile, so that people aren't waiting for like the page to load all the people's photos. So resizing those photos is a good move before you build your directory. As far as the don'ts, I think just sort of like the opposite of the tips above. So I think the big one is try to avoid selfies if you can. When you take a selfie, you're using a lower resolution camera, which doesn't take a great photo. It's a low res photo, and so when we put those up on the site, they tend to look a little grainy. Try to avoid using group photos. This example is like no one would do this. This is like the worst offending of all three of these things. But you really want to try to have a photo of just that person if you can, because it's sometimes difficult to crop out someone else if like your arm is around, the person in the photo has their arm around someone next to them. And then don't use a distracting background. So like this example, there's like other people here that we want to, like, we're naturally drawn to look at people's faces. So we're kind of distracted by those folks in the back. So keep the background simple. So again, the focus is on the person in this headshot. So hopefully those tips are pretty simple. If you do take your own photos, you can use an iPhone if that's the only camera you have available. I think following these tips can make sure that even using an iPhone, you're getting good quality photos, even if you don't have like fancy equipment to take the pictures. And Jamie shared that some regions don't necessarily do their whole team. Some will only profile the PLD or the district strategy team, since their microsites are catering to prospects. And so that's another tip. If you're like, you have a larger team, or you're just feeling like there's no way we're going to get everybody's photo, you can use separate teams at a time and build out the staff directory as you go. That's the nice thing about anything on the web, is you can keep iterating and building on it. So good tip to share there. So we're going to flip to the how-to portion of this training and look at actually how we create a staff directory from start to finish. So I'm going to go over to the site. And as I mentioned briefly, I think the one thing that trips people up most often with people-related content on TFA.org is that all of our people profiles are centralized on the national site. So when you go to your regional microsite and you're like looking for the way to add people, you won't see that option. And the reason we do that is to try to maintain one record for every individual person so that we don't have like multiple versions of like EVD across the site where, you know, if something changes about her profile, we only have to update one record. And then anywhere her picture and her information appears on the site, it's going to be correct. So as you're getting started, that's just something to keep in mind. You will start on the national site as you're building your people profiles. And already asked the question, I cannot find some staff when uploading profiles. How do I add them? We are going to talk about that right now. Good question, well timed. So the first thing you're going to do when you're working on a staff directory is you're going to start by editing all your photos. So once you have all your headshots ready to go, you're going to edit all of those first. This can be most efficient as you're building your people profiles. And so I'm going to start with an example. This is a lovely picture of John Stevens from the Rio Grande Valley, and following all the good practices for taking a headshot here. So I'm just using a photo editing program I have on my computer. I'm using a Mac, but if you're using a Windows machine, I think the tools you use to preview photos have some options as well for doing simple photo editing. So I'm just going to start by adjusting the size. I'm going to shrink this down to 320. 320 by 320 is the dimensions we're aiming for. And that's going to make his photo smaller here. And then next thing I'm going to do is just kind of crop this to be square. So it doesn't have to be super perfect, but you want to get as close as you can to 320 by 320. This part can be tedious, so you know, it's a good thing to just kind of do these all at once, and then you've got this part done. All right, so his photo is all set to go. So you would do this for all the photos of staff on your team. And then once you're done, you're ready to create your people profiles. So we're going to go to the national site, and hopefully already this will answer your question. We're going to add some people profiles. We're just going to add one for John, but the process will be the same for everyone. So when you log in, first thing you'll do is come up here to find content in the toolbar in the upper left. So again, we're on the national site. And so we'll search for John Stevens and see if he is in here. If you want, you can filter by type. You can just select person, so you're not getting a whole lot of results that aren't people profiles. So it doesn't look like John is in the system already, but we're going to add him. And so we'll go to add content, and we'll select the person content type. And this is where we'll add our information. So we're going to add John Stevens. We will upload his photo, and we'll do that over here. There's a little toolbar on the left, on the right, and you'll click on that bottom icon there. So we're going to add a file. And so we're going to add John's photo, start our upload. And if you want, you can put in your region as a tag. Then we're going to fill in two fields, alternate text and title. This is what people will use if they're visually impaired and visiting your site and using a screen reader. So we'll say a headshot of a young man wearing a suit. Just a brief description of what's happening in that photo. And then for title, we'll put in John's name. And that's what people are going to see when they hover over that photo on your site. You can leave these other fields blank. We'll click finish. And so his photo's been uploaded. Now it's available in the library. If you click that tab, you can drag it over here. And it doesn't always preview, but it will be there once you save. And then the other detail we'll add is his job title. So I believe John is the Managing Director of Development and Strategy. All right. And if you wanted to, you could put in core year. You would click the alumni or the alum button and then add your core year and a core region. We're going to leave that blank for now, but those are other fields you can fill in. If you wanted to add a bio or a short teaser about that person, you could do that in these fields. So we're going to save, and we should see John's profile here in a second. A little slow. I'm using our test environment, so things work a little more slowly. Okay, so there is John's profile. So you would do that process for all the people on your staff. And once you are done, you're ready to go build a staff directory on your region site. So I'm going to flip over to the Rio Grande Valley region, and we're going to add a staff directory on their site. I'm going to click the About Us page. And once that loads, we're going to look at the bottom, the toolbar at the bottom, and click Customize this page. And that's going to unlock this page for editing. So we're going to do a couple things. We're kind of going to refactor the layout of the page. And so I'm going to move their ED policy section up here at the top, if I can. Sometimes this is a little squirrely. All right. See if I can move it at the bottom. Basically, we're going to make one big column of information. Okay, and then we'll move these down there as well. We may not have time to make this super pretty, but I just want to show you the basics. Okay, now we're going to add the actual staff directory. And so we're going to click this new pane button here. This is going to launch our menu of panes we can add to the page. And we're going to select TFA selection and content selection with teaser multi-site. And don't worry if you're losing track of all these instructions. We do have all of this in our training manual. So this is mostly just to kind of show you the process. So this is going to add a new section to the page. We're going to leave the title blank because the top of the page is going to have the ED Paula's bio and the title above that. So we're just going to come down here to the multi-site selection section. And this is where you're going to start typing in the names of your staff. So I'm going to type in a few names from the Rio Grande Valley region. We'll start with Adelita Castillo. And there she is. Okay. And we're going to add another item. And we'll add Catherine Flores. And it's a good idea to do these in alphabetical order by last name. And we'll do 4. We'll add Ana Gonzalez. There she is. And then we'll add one more. We'll add Natalie Harrison. Okay. So you would keep going with all the folks on your staff. Once you're done adding people, you'll come down here to display settings, and you're going to select list horizontal. And that's going to display people in the grid. And then here you can choose what field you want to display. So we didn't add any teasers for our people, so we're going to uncheck that box. But we do want to show the image and the title and the job title. And then you could select core year or core region if you entered those details as well. So I'm going to finish and we'll take a look. And so you'll see here is our list of folks. You'll notice that it's at the top of the page. And so once you add this section, you'll need to do a little bit of reshuffling. And so I'm going to see if I can drag Paula's section above. So she comes first. And then our staff is at the underneath her. Okay, and so I'm going to save, and that should lock in our changes. And if you want, you can also change the way Paula's or your ED bio is displaying. So if you wanted to change it, you could have her change the display to list her vertically, so that she sort of like stands out a little bit from the other folks in the staff directory. Okay, there we go. So that is sort of the basics of building a staff directory. If you already have one built and you want to edit the people in it, you would follow those same steps. You can also click on the, like if this person's job title changes, you can also click on their profile, and then I like to open it in the new tab, and then you can edit directly here. So if you wanted to edit Natalie's information, you would just click the edit tab, and that would bring you to her profile, and you could update her job title or her core year, or anything about her, and then it would automatically be refreshed on your region page. So I know that was like a super quick overview. We have about 3 minutes. I want to see if anybody has any questions about the process of adding a staff directory. Yes, Sarah asked a really great question. So you're thinking about using a microsite to leverage the alumni network. Is it possible to set up an additional directory using the same method? Yes. So this is the same process for any kind of like people grid you want to add to your site. So if you wanted to build out an alumni page on your microsite and showcase alumni or like a advisory board of alums, you can do that with the same process. So this is kind of like your building block for anything related to listing a group of people. And then, Aubrey, would you suggest we add our regional advisory board listing separate? Yeah, that's a great question. A few regions have done this for their regional advisory board on their supporters tab. So using the same method, in some cases, regions even got headshots for all their advisory board members. Even if you don't have headshots, it's okay. We can still like list their name and their title and anything about them you want to share. So that works for advisory board folks too. Good questions. I'll make sure to share out after this call the resources for building a staff directory so you can follow all the steps, because I know we kind of like blazed through this pretty quickly. But yeah, I love that you're making the connections and thinking bigger, not just about showing folks on your staff, on your microsite, but also other people that you want to showcase, because our work is about people. And I think it's a great addition to your site to kind of show like who is behind your region and great people doing all their great work. All right. Any other questions? I'll hang on for another minute. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you all have a great day.